Okay.
Call the meeting to order. And you would rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Osborne,
Here.
Euler,
Here,
Bentley, not present. Jones. Here. Kushner, not present.
approval of city council minutes.
Move to approve.
Would that be all
Move to approve all minutes.
minutes? Okay. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes,
Jones. Yes. Thank you.
okay. Adoption of agenda.
Move to approve. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes,
Jones. Yes.
okay, we have some proclamations tonight. So this is Building Safety Month proclamation.
From community development.
It's from Community Development Building Safety Month proclamation, May 2023. And whereas the city of Warrensburg is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of disaster. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the crucial and critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us of safe, efficient, and livable buildings. And whereas this year's theme for Building Safety Month is Building Safety Starts With You. And it encourages all Americans to raise awareness and about the importance of safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and new technologies in the construction industry. Building Safety Month 2023 recognizes the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies that saved lives and protected homes, businesses, and now therefore I, Bruce D. Euler, Chairperson Pro Tem of Warrensburg, Missouri, along with the Mayor and City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Building Safety Month. Congratulations. We have a proclamation for the National Travel and Tourism Week. You already knew you were coming. So National Travel and Tourism Week, May 7th through 13th, 2023 proclamation. Whereas the travel industry fuels every industry and will continue to be an essential part of Warrensburg economy, development, and workforce. And whereas travel is an economic powerhouse in every state and destination across the country, with an economic output of 2.6 trillion in 2022, supporting 14.5 million American jobs. Go down here. Whereas the travel industry's success will grow the city of Warrensburg's economy and workforce, since prior to the pandemic, small businesses accounted for 60% of leisure and hospitality employment. And whereas in 2022, Warrensburg welcomed a strong tourism industry in support of our local economy and workforce, as evidenced by the more than $84 million in tourism-related spending and 1,734 employed in tourism in Johnson County. Cited by the Missouri Department of Revenue. And whereas travel is an essential industry, and we must continue to communicate that growing travel leads to economic growth, benefits businesses, and fosters mutual understanding. Now, therefore, I, Bruce D. Euler, Chairperson Pro Tem of Warrensburg, Missouri, along with the Mayor and City Council, do hereby proclaim May 7th through 13th, 2023 as National Travel and Tourism Week. And we urge all citizens of Warrensburg to join me in recognizing the critical role that this industry plays in our community. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and seal this 8th day of May. Right, National Public. Okay, I have a proclamation.
Public Works.
Public Works. National Public Works Week proclamation, May 21 through 27, 2023. Connecting the world through public works. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and the well-being of the people of the city of Warrensburg. And whereas this infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for all our citizens. Covers a lot. Whereas it is the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Warrensburg to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Be it now resolved, I, Bruce D. Euler, Chairperson Pro Tem of Warrensburg, Missouri, along with the Mayor and City Council, do hereby designate the week May 21 through 27 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association, government agencies, and activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Local Government Week proclamation, May 17 through 13. Who's coming up?
All of us.
All of us.
Everybody. There's lots of students serving on community health boards, and Diane's out there with the county, so local government week.
All right, you know who you are then.
There's
This goes to everybody tonight, all right? Local Government Week, May 7th through 13, 2023 proclamation. Whereas Warrensburg, Missouri was incorporated in 1855 by city leaders with a future vision to provide a safe, comfortable, and prosperous environment in which to live, work, and learn while delivering a high level of service to our growing community. And whereas local government is the branch of government which is the closest to the people and centers its focus on hometown values that instill community pride, Local Government Week brings awareness to its citizens of this vital role. And whereas the many examples of local government serving its community include providing clean drinking water, compliant sewage facilities, parks and recreation, first responders and fire and safety, road and bridge safety, snow removal, tourism, economic development, strategic growth, and ethical stewardship of taxpayer funds. And whereas local government officials play a key role in the democratic process for elections that foster freedom and liberty in a citizen's vote and transparent public meetings wherein a citizen's voice matters. And now therefore, I, Bruce D. Euler, Chairperson Pro Tem of Warrensburg, Missouri, along with the mayor and members of City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 7th through 13th as Local Government Week. And we call upon us, the residents of Warrensburg, to join us in celebrating the role of local government.
Makes me want to run the water. Thank you.
Okay, number 6.
Okay, ready for first reading?
Yes. You agree first.
Okay.
Good evening, council. Before you tonight is an ordinance to enter into agreement with Whiteman Air Force Base for mutual aid fire services. This is a renewal of a contract we entered into 2 years ago. We renew it every 2 years with the base. There were no changes. It's been both beneficial for us and them. Fortunately, we haven't had to use it in the last 2 years, but it's a good thing to have in place. So be happy to answer any questions, and I do present first and second reading tonight, if it's your pleasure. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay,
Move to approve second reading by title.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Actually,
actually,
the mayor
read-
could, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and read.
So first and second reading of an ordinance authorizing mutual aid for fire services. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to enter into an agreement between the city of Warrensburg and the Secretary of the Air Force for mutual aid for fire services.
Now, okay, move to approve that ordinance, second reading by title.
Osborne.
Yes.
Jones. Yes. Euler.
Yes,
Okay. This is for adoption or rejection. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to enter into an agreement between the city of Warrensburg and the Secretary of the Air Force for mutual aid for fire services. Osborne.
Yes.
Jones. Yes. Euler.
yes,
Thank you.
we have first and second reading of an ordinance to execute a contract with Richter Excavating and Plumbing LLC for the 2023 Sidewalk Improvement Program. It's an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with Richter Excavating and Plumbing LLC for the 2023 Sidewalk Improvement Program in the city of Warrensburg, presented by Enrico Villegas.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So before you tonight is an ordinance for first and second reading with Richter Excavating, as they are the low bidder for the 2023 Sidewalk Improvement Program. This is a very important milestone for this pilot program, and as denoted in the memo, but for the purposes of at least stating it for the record, that we are requesting that the amount not to exceed $182,000. It was originally budgeted for $160,000. The purpose of that is really to account for any inflationary pressure that we'll probably see during the project, but also to account for unknowns. Such as driveways, when we encounter those. In certain instances, it may be obvious if the driveway for the portion that's within the right of way, if it's severely deteriorated and obviously affecting pedestrian mobility. But there are also other considerations such as when we're installing new sidewalk, if the new sidewalk would touch a driveway that sloped too severely, then that would also have to be corrected to ADA standards. And so since that is an unknown, we would like to bake in a little more funds for this, just to make sure we can capitalize also on the fact that the unit pricing did come in a favorable, still higher than what we had originally thought, but hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more done for this pilot year. And then if there are any lessons learned, improve on it for next year and so on. So otherwise, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
I do have a remark that I do like the way that the city is doing it in like a zoned area. And I don't know, do you plan to put that up on the webpage so that people can kind of see what areas you'll be working in?
I do, and we're still trying to work through the bugs on it. But once we get there, it'll definitely be published.
That's great.
Now for the motion. Move to approve that ordinance second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with Richter Excavating and Plumbing LLC for the 2023 sidewalk improvement program in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. First and second reading of an ordinance for MOU with Warrensburg R6 School District for SRO program. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and the city clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Warrensburg R6 School District for the School Resource Officer Program for the 2023-2024 school year. Police Chief Andy Munsterman.
Evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, for you tonight, it's the first and second reading of the ordinance approving the MOU with the Warrensburg School District. It allows us to have SROs or school resource officers in the schools. Nothing has changed as far as financial. They reimburse us for the officer's salary while they're in the schools. Last year we had 3, we're down to 2 now. We would like to build it back up to 3, possibly 4, but at this point in time, we don't have anyone interested in the SRO position. So that's where we're at. Nothing has changed on the ordinance or the MOU. So appreciate it for your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
No question.
He answered all my questions.
Okay.
Move to approve that ordinance second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Okay. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Warrensburg R6 School District for the School Resource Officer Program for the 2023-2024 school year. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
First and second reading of an ordinance calling a bond election in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. An ordinance calling a bond election in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. City manager.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present this ordinance before you this evening, calling for a bond election. The city owns and operates a wastewater system, including 2 wastewater treatment plants. The system must meet certain state and federal regulatory requirements to maintain operations and permits. Meeting these regulatory requirements also allows for continued development and growth for the city. In 2021, the city conducted a wastewater capacity study. It was determined that both the east and west wastewater treatment plants have at several times over the course of the last few years been at or over capacity. It is determined that we need to expand both plants by one SBR, that sequence batching reactor. If we need a definition on exactly what an SBR does, Enrico is here to help answer any of those questions, but that is how we treat the sewage that leaves our homes, and we treat it before it enters the natural water system and waterways of the US. We discussed, we had another comprehensive wastewater rate study, which was presented to council in March of 2023. At that time, council contemplated those necessary improvements and approved a sewer rate fee that will be charged to Warrensburg residents and businesses that would accommodate if bonds were to be issued for this sewer expansion. This bond is calling for approximately $22 million in expansion. These expansions are necessary for any future growth or development within the city limits of Warrensburg. So we are looking at approximately $22 million. However, these bonds will be issued as needed. So there is a possibility that we may not need the full 22 million. However, as we continue to see rising inflation costs and the supply chain shortages that we are seeing, we want to make sure that we have the capability to issue the money that we need to finish this project. We are going after this bond election would allow us to go over state revolving funds. So state revolving funds allow us to have a much lower interest rate, less than 2%. As we issue the $22 million. It is important to note, if we do not get an approval on this bond election, the city will still issue certificates of participation to complete these projects. However, we will pay a much higher interest rate. Todd with Piper Sandler and Company is here to answer any particular questions about the difference between the SRF bonds and certificates of participation. But so with that, I will stand for any questions.
What's kind of the time frame for the project? What's our timeline? What do we look at?
Yeah, so hopefully we would be breaking ground in 2024 and have the projects completed by 2026.
And the cost of the bonds are passed on to the users of the system.
That is correct. So the rate fees that were approved in April contemplate this bond issuance, so that it is already included in this bond. Yes. Todd, do you have anything you would like to add?
You covered it perfectly.
Thank you.
No question. Move to approve that ordinance second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
This is for adoption or rejection. An ordinance calling a bond election in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of mayoral appointments. And where do we start for that?
So,
I'm going to read this.
yes, please.
Okay. We appoint Jan Jones as city council representative for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you.
We'll need a motion to
Yeah.
approve all of them at one time.
At one time, okay.
Okay.
Appoint Jim Kushner as board member for the Johnson County Economic Development Corporation to replace Casey Lund. And appoint Samantha Krasinski as board member for the Historic Planning Commission for a 3-year term through May 2026, as presented by Jody Schneider.
Thanks for presenting.
Yes.
Move to approve those appointments.
Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, appearances to the council not listed on the agenda. Our city attorney's getting the list here for us.
And once again, just to remind everyone that's present, the things that were mentioned last time, that the council certainly appreciates the respectful nature of the comments last time. 3 minutes for comments, and we would ask that the audience refrain from any type of audible approval or disapproval so that everyone has an opportunity to speak uninterrupted.
Looks like in this order, Jerry Ellis.
Well, don't we first have Ms. Schmidt?
Oh, yes, she's listed on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, public comment by Holly Schmitz.
We need to. I'll need to state their name.
Hello, my name's Holly Schmitz. I appreciate the chance to speak to you as a city council. I am a Johnson County Central Committee member, a wife, a mother, a grandma, a Christian, and a very concerned citizen of Johnson County. Let me ask you a few questions. Do you want Warrensburg to be known as a safe community for families and children? As we just heard, how important it is, the safety of our children at parks, rec, sewer, buildings. But are we really thinking about the long-term consequences of allowing drag shows and their perversion into our town? How important is the safety of our kids' souls? I'm a mom and a teacher, so I am very in tune with children. If you're not thinking about long-term, how this would affect our community, I would encourage you to do that. You've been entrusted to protect Warrensburg citizens and provide day-to-day public service. This includes protecting our children, and I understand that you are in a challenging position. But now you have a chance to make a decision that will impact children and generations of young people for years to come and our community. I'm requesting that you, as the city council, would consider 2 points today. 1, to protect the children, and 2, I'm requesting a city ordinance to ban all drag queen shows to protect the children now and in the future in all public areas, libraries included. Missouri Senator Rick Bratton, District 31, sent a letter to the Warrensburg Chief of Police and the Police Department April the 21st, sharing several Missouri laws that prohibit these activities. And to be truthful, I did not even know that there were this many laws against sexual deviance with children, but I am now understanding that there are Missouri laws, there's federal laws. Missouri Law 210.117 prohibits the abuse or neglect of a child. This is a Class D felony with a 1 year to 5 year sentence if it's a Class B felony. 568.060 is the neglect of a child or serious emotional injury doing psychological damage. And I really do propose that having these drag shows in our community, it's illegal and it does psychological damage to our children. It's known as grooming. And as you can see with these signs, this is pictures from last year's drag show here in Warrensburg at the Elks Lodge. They have drag queens that are stripping in front of children. I get chills just thinking about this because I cannot believe this is where we're at in our society. So I'm encouraging you guys to stand strong, don't cave into political pressure. But where would this ever be okay to strip in front of children? Thank you. Are you submitting these in the public record? Yes. Sure. They'll be on record.
Yeah, when I call your name, if you would step up the lectern and state your name and your address, please, just like last time. Jerry Ellis.
First of all, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak tonight.
Yeah, can you give us your address?
Oh, no, sorry.
Thanks.
Centerview, Missouri, which some of you already know me, you know where I live, and some of you who don't know me probably wonder why someone out in the county is wanting to speak to you. Well,
It's Centerview. I'm sorry, Jerry, but specific address.
sorry,
That's all right. No problem.
550 Northwest 721 Centerview.
Thank you, sir.
Got it? Well, reason I'm here is because I consider Warrensburg my hometown. I've worked in this town for many years, and I heard you just appoint Jim Kushner to the Johnson County Economic Development Corporation. Well, I served on that corporation for 19 years, so I know a lot of people. I graduated from college here, even though at that time it was CMSU. And I even went to high school here, which, as I reflect on that, I even took a local girl named Jill Euler to one of my dances. And now your chairman pro tem is probably sitting there thinking, man, I'm glad that didn't go any further. Now, my purpose in telling you all that is to let you know that I know a lot of people around town. And since the last city council meeting 2 weeks ago, I have been approached by a lot of citizens who were made aware of the drag show from the article in the paper. And by the way, thank you for reporting on that. They didn't know about the all ages drag show until that information came out. 100% of the people I spoke to were absolutely against a drag show for kids. Now, while I don't mean that as any threat, I do mean to report that many of them said if the council was to allow this drag show for kids to continue, they would certainly remember that come the next election. From what I learned, the silent majority is not going to remain silent on this issue. So don't kill the messenger, as they say. Now, I want to make it clear to the council that when people spoke at the last council meeting, it was misinterpreted that we were against the drag show. That's not true. Personally, I have nothing against someone performing for adults. But when you consider the age of the kids, please keep in mind, I can't send my underage kids to buy alcohol. They can't buy cigarettes. They can't drive, and they sure can't attend an R-rated movie. All these rules put in place to protect the kids. So why should an all ages drag show be any different? In closing, my recommendation to this council would be to implement an ordinance against allowing an all ages drag show in the future. If people want a drag show for kids, they can do that in the privacy of their own home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Compton. Address, please.
Sure. I'm Mike Compton, 5 Southeast 230th Road, Warrensburg, Missouri. I was thankful to learn that the drag show scheduled for June 3rd is now an 18 and over only event. I wish their decision to limit the event to adults could be the end of this affair. I'm sure you all hope for the same thing. It is clear from their statements that they intend to try again in the future to bring an all ages event back to Warrensburg. I never again want to see photos of children in our community holding up dollars for drag queens like patrons at a strip club posted on social media. More importantly, I want to ensure that the children in our city are never exposed to such environments in the first place. And I know I'm not alone in that hope. In speaking with our state senator, Rick Bratton, he informed me of the state statutes that such an event would violate. He also told me he detailed these in a letter to the chief of police. The chief and his police force do an excellent job protecting our community, and I have no doubt with this knowledge, they will do all they can to enforce them. That said, it is troubling that it took a state involving a state senator to point out the statutes that prevent children from being exposed to performances such as the one that was planned for our community. To avoid any future confusion, I call upon the city council to pass a city ordinance that specifically prohibits anyone under the age of 18 from attending drag queen performances. State statutes govern adult businesses, yet the city council reinforces and strengthens those statutes for our community's sake. The mayor of Chesterfield, Missouri, Bob Nation, protected his community's children from exposure to drag queen performances by passing just such an ordinance. We can provide the council with information if you would like to use that as a model for one that will protect our children. I urge you to act quickly. Doing so will add additional support to our great police and, most importantly, protect the children of Warrensburg and surrounding communities from these highly sexualized and inappropriate performances in the future. And I thank you for your time.
Abigail Wiley. Please give your address, please.
159 Southwest and 50th Road, Chilhowee, Missouri. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Abigail Wiley. Thank you for providing a place for us concerned citizens to exercise our constitutional right to appeal to our local government with important issues. I would like to reiterate what previous speakers have already stated and urge you to pass a municipal ordinance to ban all drag shows for children under 18 in the city of Warrensburg. Children are the most innocent members of humanity in our local community. They are also the most defenseless and deserve to be protected. Verses 8 and 9 of Proverbs 31 says, "Open thy mouth for the speechless and the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." If our local government cannot pass and enforce laws to protect the vulnerable, it has failed its most basic purpose. Thank you for your attention on this important issue.
Laurel Morton. Please give your address. We have it here, but if you just state it again, please.
25 Southwest, 251 Road, Centerview.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's working or not. Thank you for this opportunity to address the council. My husband and I are new to the area. And you can only imagine my shock and dismay at learning that the past 2 years, there's been a drag queen performance that included children being invited to it, encouraged to come to it, advertised as being appropriate for children and families. I couldn't disagree with something like that more. The argument's been made, if you don't want your kid to see a drag show, then don't take them. We all know that parents do unhealthy things with their children sometimes. When my boys were small, I buckled them into car seats. I did that because I wanted to protect them and keep them safe, but I also did it because there was a law saying I had to do that. You can't take your child into a liquor store and let them buy liquor. You can't send them into the gas station and have them buy cigarettes. Why is that? It's a law protecting children. So rules to protect children aren't something new at all. I would like to encourage the City Council of Warrensburg and the mayor pro tem to please create an ordinance that prevents this from happening in this community again. Thank you.
Nadine. And the last name is
Soles, S-O-L-E-S.
Soles. Thank you.
Thank you.
And your
Nadine
address, please.
Nadine Soles, 274 Northwest 50th Road, Centerview. Mark 9:42. And if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to be thrown into the sea with a large millstone tied around his neck. This is God's word. I lost my mother to death when I was 3. I lost my father to death when I was 8. I was put in a home for an aunt. I was put in a home of an aunt. For 1.5 years, I was a victim of incest by 2 of her adult sons and one in high school. We know not all family members make good decisions concerning children.
I ask you as council members to set ordinances to protect our children now and in the future with age restrictions for all activities of sexual or seductive content. Thank you.
Raymond James.
Raymond James, 552 Southeast EE Leeton. So I guess we're quoting the Bible. But I don't know if we're paying attention to them 10 commandments where it tells you not to bear false witness. Lady stood up here, at least she didn't call me a pedophile this time, but said that there was stripping going on. None of the performers took off any clothes. I understand you folks in the audience look at those pictures and say, oh, that's terrible. I don't want that for my child. I would again tell you, not your child. I think it should be legal. But it doesn't matter because we had some people with guns make threats. People talking about building bombs, blowing up the Elks. So we have decided to make it what the folks here said was going to be okay with them, just a pride event, a drag show with no kids. It's 18 and over, but yeah, we're still here talking about it. Thank you very much.
Michelle Lamos. Yep, thank you.
307 South Warrensburg, Missouri. Hi, everyone. I thought I wouldn't be here today because I thought that the goal from last time was to have an adults only drag show, and because of concerns about the safety of performers and attendees, that's what's happening now. I've heard a lot about biblical reasons not to have drag shows. The legal reasons I'm a little iffier on. Specifically, the ordinances in the state that talk about cabarets are for establishments where alcoholic beverages are served, which regularly feature persons who appear semi-nude. When you talk about sexually oriented establishments, it says that their income must come from at least 30% of their income is from sexually oriented materials. Otherwise, it is not a sexually oriented business. I'm not sure where these things fit in. One of my biggest concerns about the Bible being used as a legal argument is a phrase that was recently used about this issue that says, I don't think we have the command to kill anyone. I hope nobody thinks that the Bible has told them that they need to kill people who are supporting our LGBTQ people. And I'd hoped we would move on to something that actually is harmful to kids. Guns are the second leading cause of death for children 5 to 11 and 10 to 14. The third for people who are 15 to 24. In 2021, there were 2,136 overdoses in Missouri, 11 in Johnson County. It's the #1 cause of death for people aged 18 to 44. In 2021, there were 1,414 firearm deaths in Missouri, 8 in Johnson County. In 2019, there were 49 alcohol-related crashes in Johnson County. In the 2020 Johnson County Health Survey of children, in the last month on the survey, 11.2% considered suicide, 6.9% planned it, and 3.9% attempted it. Children in Johnson County. Near 30% reported depressive symptoms often in the prior month. That's in our county and that's affecting our kids. And what bothers me more than anything else in this is that LGBTQ young people are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide. And these are the children who deserve to be proud of who they are, because I was raised to believe that God made me who I am. And I cannot imagine that same God wants me to kill myself because people in my community can't accept who I am. Thank you.
Atsuki Mori.
My name is Atsuki. I'm living in 503 Swallow Street. So I am a registered nurse. I graduated UCM and then I have a medical degree from Japan. I'm a psychiatrist. And so being psychiatrist, my concern is LGBTQIA plus youth suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of youth. And in 2019, 19% of youth considered to attempt suicide, and 77% of them are LGBTQIA plus community. And in 2020, they did the research, nationwide, 73% of LGBTQIA youth experience discrimination. And based on their sexual orientation and gender identity, and 45% seriously considered to attempt suicide, and 14% attempt suicide. In Missouri, its number is about same. So then this was noticed by US government long time ago, 20 years ago. So US government had this program planned to reduce youth, the LGBTQIA plus youth suicide risk, the decrease the number of the people commit suicide. So many researchers are done research and they found a risk factor, which is stigmatizing youth for who they are. And the youth feel fear of isolation, feeling the being a burden to people, and negative school, kind of like bullying. And they also find that there's a positive, a protective factor, which is support from school, family, community. So I'm a scientist. I know we love to divide things in group, but humans are not dividing by two. If you have a time, Google it. There's so many the condition that outside, inside doesn't match, don't match. So these are things like someone choose to be. They're born to be that way. I have been to the Pride Festival twice. 2 years in a row, 2 years ago and last year. And the significant things, like I touched my heart, was there was many young people wrapping themselves with the Pride flag, holding their hand. Their face were peaceful. Then I realized this is what they need. They need to feel they're okay to exist. And most of this, I've been there, that most of this performer, they've been through this discrimination. They are not the professional. They have their day job. They do that the part-time. They're trying to tell young people it's okay to be who they are. So we talk about safety of children. As a community, we have to provide safe environment for the children to keep themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. David Kreiner, is that correct?
That's correct. Very good. David Kreiner, 503 Swallow Street here in Warrensburg. If that address sounds familiar, the last lady who was very nice and smart, that's my wife. Everybody should listen to her. We have gone to the drag shows, as she said. I didn't see anything that would indicate a violation of any of the laws that were mentioned. We thought it was a friendly and supportive event, as my wife said. We've raised 5 kids. We feel that we can make decisions about what events our children should attend. Input from other people is not needed and frankly not welcome. Last time I was here, I mentioned that I thought there was an economic issue with the economic health of Warrensburg, that if we discourage people from holding a variety of events, that it has a negative impact on Warrensburg. And since that time, we've seen that the Pride Fest that was planned is now limited to adults. Guess what that means? That means there are people who would have been in Warrensburg, frequenting businesses, spending money that day, who will not be. If the sort of ordinance that's being supported were to be passed, that would mean in the future, there will be people who otherwise might have come to Warrensburg who will not just for that particular event, but because they see Warrensburg as a place that is not welcoming to them. So my thought is, let's be careful about the decisions that we make where we try to legislate morality for other people, because those decisions may well come back to bite us economically. Thank you for your attention.
R.E. Morton, is that correct?
It is.
Great. Address?
25 Southwest 251st. Centerview. When we moved here almost 2 years ago, I thought I lived in Warrensburg. Because we go out to Vision and nobody's got signs telling us who's doing where's what. But we're literally closer to Warrensburg than we are Centerview. So it's kind of an interesting sideline. We are kind of hearing a lot of different opinions about a lot of stuff, but I think that the thing that strikes me most is that there are laws in this country for a reason to protect children. Children don't process things well as youth. They have to grow and mature. And until they in this nation have been identified as roughly 18 years of age, some 21, depends on what it is, they are not allowed to make or partake in situations which you've heard about here tonight and spoken very eloquently from a lot of different people. I am of the opinion, after raising children and having grandchildren, that that is a very true statement. They mature over time. And until they are of a nature of an age where they can process properly, then I think it's important to protect them. And for the city council, I speak to you, hoping that you will act to clarify and protect them with an ordinance. Thank you.
Sarah Wiley.
.683 Southeast 1300 Road, Windsor, Missouri. So I work here in Warrensburg. I'm the mother of 6, and I'm very concerned about having kids in our community attend drag shows. It's never appropriate for kids to attend these type of events. I understand the event in June is now an adults only event, but my continued concern is for next year. We will need the city council to stand up and make it clear where they stand. Protect our children. A municipal ordinance would accomplish this. I want to thank Missouri Senator Rick Bratton for his leadership and the letter to the police department explaining our Missouri laws, as that explains that these all ages drag shows are not appropriate. They are a violation of Missouri law. City council, follow his lead, take a stand, and make it clear that Warrensburg will enforce Missouri law. Thank you.
Doug Fritz.
Doug Fritz, 26 Northeast 225, Warrensburg, Missouri. The inclusion drag queen venue is sexually explicit adult entertainment. I think we'd all agree about that. Adult entertainment should be for mature audiences only. Drag queens are female impersonators whose venue can sexually exploit children. With their indoctrination about adult sexuality and sexual orientation. Dr. Deborah So is a sex
neuroscientist who claims that drag tends to desensitize kids to overt depictions of adult sexuality. There are also outspoken citizens of the LGBTQ community who oppose drag queen venues directed at underage audiences. A drag queen named Kitty, that you saw her on Fox News. Kitty opposes drag venues for children. Some states have enacted legislation already that bans drag entertainment for children, and some are presently enacting legislation to ban drag queen entertainment for children. As members of the Johnson County Citizens for the Protection of Children, we're asking the city council that we put in place an ordinance. We understand that inclusion has recommended that children not come to this year's performance on June the 3rd at the Elks Lodge. We understand that, but this could come up again. This ugly head could be raised again in the future. So we are wishing and hoping that we can have a city ordinance that will ban drag queen performances for children. Thank you.
Vicky Gibson, is that correct?
99 Southwest 101 Road. I have something here I'd like you all to take a look at. This was from the last year's Warrensburg drag show. I want to start off by reminding everyone here that our children are our future. They are our heritage. God states in his word that every child is a gift and every child is a reward. We live in a society where our children are constantly being told they have to believe a particular way, otherwise they're wrong, or perhaps they're a bad person or even a hater. Some would argue that we here today, we might be haters, fearmongers, or the dreaded homophobics because we don't bow down and agree to these senseless, immoral, perverted, corrupt garbage that is being thrown around and forced on us. We embrace the right to choose. We're speaking on behalf of the children. We also embrace reality, normal, moral, and ethical living. Living is right, or living right is not rocket science, it's common sense. And like the most of us in this room, I think we're strong in that department. We are here as a group of citizens. We're committed to standing for the voiceless. Our children, the ones who don't have a voice in these days. We aren't going anywhere anytime soon, no matter what names, titles, or ridiculous ideologies others may speak against us or throw our direction. We are fully aware who we are through God that created us. We are looking for solutions, and so that's where you all come in. We want safeguards put in place. We want accountability where there should be accountability. We want our children protected against exploitation. We don't come with a lot of feel-good stories about our experiences with last year's drag queen show. However, we did come with evidence that they are being exploited. Photos of minor children at last year's events were handed to you at the last meeting as well. We want our children protected from an agenda that is hell-bent on grooming our children. We want our children's minds and their lives protected in these very vulnerable years. The state of Missouri sees a minor child as not being capable of making good decisions on behalf of their own selves. This raises the question with me, why are you, the city council, not taking this stand as well? You have the capacity to make a difference and to make a change. We want a city ordinance. We want assured that these events will not be back next year and that the minor will be protected, every minor in this city and hopefully in this county. And I know you're not the county level. We are committed to standing strong until this battle is won and until we see action from you on behalf of our minors. We want to see an ordinance. We're not going away, guys. We're the voice of the children. And you can go ahead and put that.
Brian Schmitz.
Brian Schmitz, 1665 Northwest 390 Road, Kingsville, Missouri. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen on the city council, for this opportunity to speak. I wanted to ask you to please consider tonight not what's politically correct or expedient, but instead what the federal and state laws would say towards drag shows, especially towards the children, but to our families as well. And then also what's ethically and morally right. We have to, I just want to exhort you to consider what's good for the citizens of Warrensburg, for the mind, body, and the soul. So I want to pivot here for a second because there's been some talk about suicide, and it's really an epidemic, and I agree. And most of us would say, I know I would say, I'm motivated by love. I love our children and grandchildren. I love all children, want them to be protected, love human life. God made everyone, and everyone's valuable in his eyes. And with that being said, in the last 2 years, the actual basically youth that's transitioning and transgender community has gone up exponentially in the last couple of years. 7.6 more times likely to commit suicide a transgender teen is. So with that in mind, we as adults need to provide clarity. We need to provide truth on God made male and female, you know, and maybe I'm getting on a tangent a little bit there, but just say that we need to help these children because there's confusion. And if we're promoting drag shows, we're promoting confusion. And we know the end goal is to bring families in and impact the family. You impact the family, you impact Warrensburg's community for negative. So what is good and right? What is good and right by the laws that are in place, but also what's good and right morally and ethically, I mentioned. So I'll take you back just a little bit in history. Think about your parents and grandparents. If there was a strip joint or one of these drag shows down the block from them, what would they do? What would they have said? Would they have taken a stand? Would they have been quiet? Should we? Probably not, right? So consider that, because what is good and right doesn't change, although technology and technique does. And there's a lot of technology and techniques that have changed since our grandparents been around, but what's good and right doesn't. And so please consider this city council. I just ask you to please consider an ordinance that would actually ban the drag shows from our city in public venues to protect not only children, but families, and to add clarity. Thank you. Yeah.
Chris Nordval.
Yes, here, present. 1900 6th Street Ford, not beautiful, not Nassau, Missouri. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'll try to keep it short. This time I wrote stuff down. We've heard a lot of talk about safety and protecting children, but I have to ask, does that include my kids? Are you going to protect my kids when they get harassed for being gay walking down the street? Because that does happen. I want to make a note that making it 18 plus is not admitting that it was wrong or something inappropriate was happening. This means that the people who put on took into account the threats that they were receiving and decided to make a decision basically out of safety. I would encourage the council to reach out to those businesses, publicize a point of contact for those businesses to contact you to let you know how they were being harassed, how they were being threatened. Basically, in my opinion, a ban is a solution in search of a problem. We don't have an epidemic of drag shows happening in this town, so I don't know why a ban would be really necessary. We even considered organizing a LGBTQ family event just for families, not including any drag performers. And even when we were considering that, we thought, what about the safety of the families attending? I think that says something when we are concerned about families just getting together being threatened.
Last, I would say either everyone is welcome in Warrensburg or no one is. Thank you.
Jane, is it Kiger? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
901 Anderson Street, Warrensburg, Missouri. Everyone here today is talking about the children. And you know, as the person who is my dad just spoke, I am actually one of these children. I used to be. 3 years ago, I was in Warrensburg High School. This place I have never felt less safe. I grew up here, born and raised here. When I found out that I went to UCM, I almost cried because of the safety that I didn't really ever feel in this community. In high school, people said heinous phrases to insult me just for being LGBTQ. People would shout faggot towards me. People would shout slurs in my direction. I even had people tell me that they hope I got raped by my dad. I have never felt more suicidal than homophobic people speaking against the rights of me and my siblings. The only places I have ever felt safe in Warrensburg, from even just walking down the street, has been the Pride events in Warrensburg. These Pride events are really important for children to experience because in high school, they are not safe. They do not feel safe. LGBTQ kids feel like they have no community, and Pride is that sense of community. I know people said they have been worried about the drag shows and have shown images. Trust me, you can see worse images if you go to a public pool. These public pools, we're not showing ordinances against those. And this is because it is not an LGBTQ event. They are not attacking this because it is a sexually exploitive experience. It is because they're LGBTQ. People talk about the agenda. People in the audience have said this. This is just because it's LGBTQ people. There are kids, including my siblings, who are in the positions that I was in who cannot access Pride anymore. And LGBTQ kids, just like me, are afraid to speak up. The only thing this proposed ordinance would protect children from is their own self-expression. Please, if you care about people like me, do not pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Cynthia Thomas.
He's not here.
Okay. Dorothy Arviza. Is that correct, or what's left?
Arvizu, yeah.
Arviza. Arviza. Okay, thank you.
That's what I usually do, yeah. 37 Southeast 250 Road, Warrensburg.
Back in the day, I was a tour director and I took conventions, conferences and tours to places like Miami, New York City, Chicago, Seattle, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. A few years after that, I taught on post at a military base. And I have seen all of the clubs that are on the outside gates of the military base. I can pretty much with assurance state that what we had last year at Pride was none of the above. It was very family friendly, and we should be very comfortable with Inclusion Plus. They took great care of the kids that came to see them. In the state of Missouri, it is legal for a parent to give permission for a child under the age of 16 to marry. In the state of Missouri, it is legal to force a child who has been raped to bear a child. Think about that. I am extremely concerned that because the words perversion, yada, 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 et cetera, whatever, are getting thrown around, that we are mistaking human sexuality for an imaginary problem. Grooming happens within a trust relationship. Those trust relationships are mostly really close to home. It's the pastor, it's the athletic coach, it's the caretaker, it's the babysitter. It doesn't happen in a 1 hour or 2 hour show. We have had somewhere around 600 years of common reading available. And in that time, we have managed to read the Bible, all manner of Western civilization literature, and it has not gotten rid of gayness. They're not going away. 2 hours at a kid-friendly drag show, make those, outlaw those, that's Robin Williams. That's Bob Hope. Yeah. We just had a proclamation in this chamber a couple of months ago supporting the LGBTQIA community. In the city of Warrensburg, we declared ourselves a welcoming community. I don't care how you raise your children. You do not have the right to tell anyone else how to raise theirs. And the city of Warrensburg has followed their processes. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Penny Roberts, please.
Penny Roberts, 703 Southeast 50th Road,
And the city, ma'am?
Warrensburg, Missouri.
Thank you.
I've been a member of the Warrensburg community for 30 years. And I stand firm when I say that I stand to protect children. Allowing those children 18 and under to attend any type of adult entertainment, including a drag show, is unacceptable. It doesn't matter if they are the children or family of the performers or participants. State laws that prohibit this are there to protect the children in our community. In this community, there seems to be some question whether the state laws in place should be enforced locally. I would like a municipal ordinance put in place to codify that no one under 18 be allowed to drag shows or any other adult entertainment within city limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Barrett.
Chris Barrett, 220 North Friendson Road, Independence, Missouri, 64050. So thanks for allowing me to speak again. This is my third time here. So why is a gay dude from Independence here? Well, the reason is because I'm the Missouri chapter leader of Gays Against Groomers. So Warrensburg is a part of Missouri, and therefore I'm here. First of all, I want to address the notion of the suicidality among gay kids. That is actually a problem. But I don't think that we're killing ourselves because we can't all go to all ages drag shows. I never went to a drag show as a kid. And guess what? I'm still here. That's nonsense. This sends a terrible message to the community that all gay people are on board with this supposed outreach to kids. I can assure you that we are not all on board with this. So last time, it was kind of interesting. I think everyone speaking in favor of the all ages drag show, I'm pretty sure we're heterosexual people, and I was the only gay person speaking, and I was against it. And now this time, someone from my community did speak in favor of it. And I just want to say, I get it. I know where you're coming from. I do. I really do. But the thing is, I'm just asking you to stand up for kids, pass an ordinance to do away with this forever. I have a copy of an ordinance that can be used. I can provide it to you guys if you want it. And we plan on actually using it in the city of Independence. I'm in contact with the city council members there, and they are, I do have a lot of people on board with me. So I think that we will get an ordinance passed there. So anyway, I'm moving on to Independence, St. Louis, and Kansas City. So you may not see me for a while, but trust me, I'll be here anytime this community needs me. Thank you.
Rachel Gifford.
Mike Ivo, Northwest 721 Daily. We've talked a lot about rights. And what I realized, can you guys hear me? Anyway, what I realized is there was no vote taken about having a drag queen show in the Warrensburg area. It just appeared. So anybody who didn't particularly want it really never got to even have a vote about that. So now belatedly, we're coming forward and saying, we don't want that for children. We simply don't want it for children. It's 100% true. The Trevor report cited in Daily News says that 4 out of 10 LGBTQ youth from 13 to 24 years of age have considered suicide in the past year. Is that sad? You bet that's sad. That's really, no kidding. 1 out of 5 have attempted suicide. Here's the reality. These kids are wicked mixed up. They need some guidance, and there is guidance out there. They're questioning their own identity, and how confusing is that? You don't even have the security of recognizing if you're male or female. That would scare the daylights out of me if I didn't have some kind of personal identity in terms of my own gender. So anyway, here's the bottom line. I worked in pediatric endocrinology for about 15 years. There are 2 genders, and it can be noticed by number 1 genotype, XX versus XY. And this isn't real new news to you, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Phenotype, the anatomy, gamete production, sperm versus egg, and pelvis. Even our bones tell, pelvis is very narrow in a male and it has very wide opening in a female to allow a baby to pass. There are a lot more ways too, but those are the most obvious ones. The bottom line is that drag queen exposure for kids just helps confuse them. And it's a mean trick. It is. If somebody had thrown that in my face when I was a kid, I probably would have run out screaming. And that's the truth. I would have just started crying and run away. It's not fair. It is just not a fair thing to do to children. It mixes them up. It confuses them. So I do also request that the city do a municipal ordinance to ban drag queen shows for children. For children. Let's not mix them up anymore. Life's hard enough. Thanks.
You. Karen Martin.
Karen Martin, 405 9th Street Terrace here in Warrensburg. I too have been a resident of this town for 50 years, quite some time. I've graduated from the University of Missouri, University of Warrensburg, Central Missouri State University, UCM. I get confused very easily on that because it's changed so much. However, I also have worked for the city of Warrensburg as a dispatcher, as a law enforcement officer, and Johnson County as a law enforcement officer investigating child abuse and personal crimes. During that point in time, I never, in my investigation, child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, child emotional abuse, ever spoke to a drag queen. I spoke to pastors. I spoke to friends. I spoke to family. I spoke to 2 little girls whose father committed suicide because it was disclosed that he had been sexually abusing the older daughter. Never a drag queen. We've heard talk of grooming. Ms. Barrett, Gays Against Groomers. And I believe this was brought to your attention just a few minutes ago as well, that there are several steps to grooming a child to the point that they can be sexually abused. It includes gaining trust and access, playing a role in the child's life, isolating the child, creating secrecy around this relationship, initiating sexual contact, and controlling this relationship. It does not happen, again, it's been mentioned, in a We're Now drag show. It doesn't happen. If people want to talk to others about protecting children, maybe this needs to be taken to the schools. Maybe this needs to be taken to the churches. Maybe this needs to be a community project with parents and caregivers in the city of Warrensburg. I'm not a religious person, but I will finish with this, Matthew 7:1. The New Living Translation, do not judge others and you will not be judged. Verse 2, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. I'd also like to say, so many times I cannot hear the words of love that you're professing because your actions are too loud. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public comments. That was the last one we had signed up. Anybody else? That closes that bit. And I just want to say something. I think it's an honor for us council members to sit here and see local government at its finest. People coming out, getting off work, taking your time to come here, no matter what side you're on, but it's really impressive to see somebody turn out for this. So we want to thank you for that. City managers report.
Well, we're gonna
Actually,
do miscellaneous matters from the mayor
number 9.
and your city council.
Yep.
Okay. Miscellaneous matters number 9 on the agenda.
Miscellaneous matters.
No.
No.
Okay.
Read that.
Yep. Excuse me. Yes. I do want to read a statement now that the public comments are closed. You're going to come back in if you want to. So this is a statement regarding drag show. The city recognizes and appreciates the citizen input received over the last several weeks as related to a drag show planned for June 3rd, 2023. While the organizers have announced cancellation of the all ages portion of this event, these discussions still merit response. This event was scheduled to take place at a privately owned property in town, and as such, the city must operate for any similar future events within its constitutional and statutory boundaries related to private conduct on private property. At the same time, the city also takes seriously the protection of children and recognizes and enforces state law related to private activity that exposes children to illegal content or actions. Just as the city enforces state laws related to other crimes, the city will continue to uphold its duty to enforce state laws related to children. Crimes that involve child victims are serious and should be handled under the state statutes that set those rules. City ordinance violations carry fairly minimal penalties when compared to state law. Nuisance violations, which some have suggested the city apply here, for example, have a statutory cap of a $200 fine, inclusive of all court costs for a first violation. Jail or imprisonment is not an option available this offense in municipal court. State law on providing minors pornographic or obscene material, however, can result in imprisonment and fines reaching thousands of dollars. Enacting city ordinance to address serious state crimes does not deter those crimes. It actually makes the consequences for their commission less severe. The city stands behind state law with its proportionate penalty provisions for all crimes involving child victims. A suspicion that a private person or entity might commit a violation of law, however, does not empower the city to shut down private property or private assemblies in advance. The city must respond to violations of law as they happen, when the facts provide probable cause to believe that a crime has taken place. The situation is no different. The city will investigate any allegations of criminal activity involving children and will, when probable cause exists, forward the results of those investigations to the county's elected prosecutor to file charges. The police power entrusted to the city by the state of Missouri is an awesome responsibility and must be exercised with care and without favoritism to any person, group, or point of view. Passionate viewpoints have been expressed on many sides of the public comments surrounding this upcoming event. Passionate viewpoints alone, however, cannot determine arrest and charging decisions. Any law enforcement action of the city or its officers must be based upon the facts as they occur and the law as it exists. It is the charge of the city and its officials to honor the rights of all citizens and at the same time see that all citizens live up to their duties under law as well. That obligation will be honored by the city without fear or favor. But there is no crystal ball. We will review the facts as they happen. And as one of our most famous founders, Alexander Hamilton, put it best when he said, there can be no truer principle than this, that every individual of the community at large has an equal right to the protection of government. Whether that protection be for a child, for a parent, for a concerned citizen, or for a performer, the city will stand steadfast in its obligations to all parties and demand that those same parties do the same with respect to their own duties to comply with the law.
Okay. So we will, city manager's report, just an announcement that the May 22nd meeting will be canceled. We do want to thank the governing body, and Rico and I would like to extend our gratitude for allowing us to attend the Missouri City and County Managers Association Conference this last week. We truly appreciate the opportunity to go and network with other city managers across the state, as well as grow professionally. We do appreciate that that does take time out of the office. And we thank you all for that opportunity. Do any of the other directors have anything they would like to address the governing body?
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I also want to thank you for allowing staff to go to the APWA Snow Conference about mid-April. A lot of good practices were shared, and especially we did do a lot of networking with vendors as our intent has been known now that we want to pursue liquid as a tool for snow and ice control. So we do believe that within our current budget that we'll be able to potentially afford some liquid tools. Nothing fancy, but it's kind of right for where we are today. One of the other things that I did want to share that we will be doing away with the practice of having street staff only doing snow and ice control. We will be pulling from other public works staff to help with that load. That way they're not operating potentially plowing snow 3 or 4 days straight. I mean, that does take a toll on anyone physically and mentally. And in talking with several management within Public Works, they've all expressed that that is something that should have happened. So we are, and personally, I am thankful for that immediate buy-in. So we are looking at a change in how we do our operations, because most importantly, the most effective tool that we have is a plow on the ground. And so when our guys were sleeping, there could potentially be 8 to 12 hours where snow starts to accumulate again. So having a 12 on, 12 off style of shift will allow us to better control for snow and ice, in addition to having liquid within our tool arsenal. So that's really the only update I had on Public Works. So if you have any questions from me.
Seems like a good time of year to plan for that, so.
Always is.
Do we have, what are we going to use to apply that liquid? Do we have that in-house?
So we are going to bring in several vendors. There is one piece of equipment that's around 45,000. That's kind of on the cheaper end. It would have its own power generator and a way to dump salt and water into it and make a brine type solution, so that we can use that brine to pre-treat, but also pre-wet the salt that we would apply on the ground. In looking at some of our numbers and in talking with other professionals within the field, that an ROI on this type of thing could be, you could see an ROI or return on investment within about a year or two. So that, again, that's on the cheaper end, but we are looking at scaling up our fleet. So we have a new truck on order that will have liquid tanks. We're also looking at retrofitting an existing truck to have liquid capability as well. So we potentially have 2 this go around for snow. But that, in addition to that piece of equipment, there is I think a 600 gallon capacity for that. So depending on the severity of the snow event, that could last throughout the entirety of the snow event, especially if we only have 2 trucks. But hopefully year over year, we can continue to scale up. So depending on the severity of the snow, we'd be ready for it.
Thank you.
When do you expect your new truck, the one that's already retrofitted?
So we have been talking with our vendor on that, and potentially in the fall.
Not too soon, right?
Not too soon. So they are severely backlogged. So we did meet with them when we were at the conference, and they did express that so many people have placed in orders that it's kind of pushed everything back. And also with the supply chain issues with steel and other things when it comes to fabricating the equipment. But it looks like potentially the fall. So hopefully before snow. So.
Does it also work on ice?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
There are several techniques when it comes to anti-icing, which comes in the form of like pre-treating. So in the event that the forecast shows that we would get a severe temperature drop, and also if there's any sleet or anything coming in, then we would treat any primary roadways, such as like our emergency snow routes, any collectors, or arterial streets. So we try to spend time on that. And then as the snow comes, then treat it as it comes to it with addition of salt and plows. And sand as well, which we do have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Enrico.
Thank you.
Director of Finance report.
Marcella is out this evening. If there are any questions, happy to answer those to the best of my ability, or get back with you all if there are any additional questions.
Jan, any questions?
No.
No. Eddie? we'll get back to you then.
Appreciate it. The one thing I did want to mention, I believe I failed to mention this in my presentation on the SRF bonds, but
Yes.
thank you all for reading your packets, but just a reminder that the election will be a special election and it will be in August. It will be a single polling location. But because of the timeline that we are up against and meeting those EPA requirements, we do not really have time to wait till April of 2024.
So there are no other elections going on. So
Correct, so we won't be able to get it.
will we just go to the courthouse?
I'm working with Diane on the location. I do not think it will be the courthouse.
Maybe here.
Maybe. So we'll get more of that information out. It has to be certified by May 30th, so we'll start. planning. The nice thing about having the only single election, it will be very transparent and folks will know exactly what they are going to the polls to vote.
No confusion.
Eddie, anything else?
No, sir.
Anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.